On September 11th, 2025, Beth Ann Harris, an activist, asked Yara, Shahidi activist, in a Forbes interview on how she felt about her world right now. Yara answered honestly by saying she is terrified and would like a plan to fix it. I empathize and that no one should live in fear. In my opinion, this sounds like a plea for help. I want to help, but how? When Yara Shahidi was younger, she did an equality speech on October 19, 2018 at the Gleason Respect Awards. I argue the speech is the hypothesis to fix her world and to reduce her fear. In April 2024, I published my book on Amazon based on this hypothesis, showing that prevention will lead to equity and that equity will lead to equality. This hypothesis will fix the political, economic, and social problems in her world and our world. This nonprofit, non-edited channel is a letter to Yara Shahidi and teaching Yara's hypothesis to the public in order to better our world. In the end, Yara Shahidi will get the Nobel Peace Prize for her hypothesis. Dear Yara Shahidi, this is Chapter 20, Public Housing. When it comes to housing, it incorporates many facets of life that can help Lamont Plus students become functioning adults by mastering the American dream. For example, there is college housing for single students or students with families wanting to get a bachelor's, master's, or PhD in subjects like physics, chemistry, or biology. There is trade school housing for single students or for students of families who want to be plumbers, electricians, or mechanics. There is special needs housing for students to adults or adults with families who work and go to school if necessary. They also need staff members that live with them to help them with their day-to-day goals if necessary. There is soldier housing for a single soldier to soldiers with families who can move a lot across the nation or across the world in need to defend the nation. Plus, the soldier housing is necessary for soldiers learning to be civilians again. There is elderly housing for single adults or adults with families who are retired and live off Social Security. There is homeless housing for singles to families who lost their homes from some circumstances and need help to regain a home to live in again. There is immigrant housing for single immigrants or immigrants with families who come to America to start a new life. There is prisoner housing or prisoners learning on how to live in the civilian world again after they get out of prison. The last housing is for people who fail in life. These people learn how to start over fresh by learning from their mistakes and understand how to succeed in life. In 1944, Franklin Roosevelt signed the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of the GI Bill. The bill provided World War II veterans with funds for college, education, unemployment, insurance, and housing. This federal aid helped veterans adjust to civilian life in the areas of hospitalization, purchase of homes, and businesses, and education. Harvard. This act provided tuition, subsistence, books and supplies, equipment, and counseling services for veterans to continue their education in school or college. Within 7 years of passing of this bill, approximately 8 million veterans received educational benefits, with approximately 2.3 million veterans attending colleges and universities. 3.5 million received school training, and 3.4 million received on-the-job training. By 1955, 4.3 million home loans had been granted to veterans, totaling $33 billion. This means veterans were responsible for buying 20% of all the new homes built after the war. And by 1956, when the GI Bill expired, the education and training had distributed $14.5 billion to veterans. The increase in federal income taxes alone would pay for the cost of the bill several times over. The results of the GI Bill rippled through the rest of the economy that helped launch a strong middle class and the golden age of economics from 1945 to 1973. The GI Bill was extended to 2.3 million for Korean. The GI Bill was extended to 2.3 million Korean War veterans and 8 million Vietnam War veterans. The good news is that a regular college is equivalent. The good news is that a regular college is equivalent to an Ivy League school in education. The only reason why people go to an Ivy League school is for social networking. Ivy League schools draw Fortune 500 companies and Nobel Prize winning scientists. A person going there can get investors to invest in a student's startup company, and a Nobel Prize winner's recommendation can help with a job or be placed on a good research team with the best scientific equipment. This is why Ivy League schools have people wanting to go to them so badly. Let's talk about public housing. Public housing was established to provide decent and safe rental housing for eligible low-income families, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. Public housing comes in all sizes and types, from scattered single-family homes to high-rise apartments for elderly families. In America, 9.3 million Americans benefit from housing assistance like rental and housing subsidies. The average income per assisted household is $14,693, and 75% of these public assisted households are female-headed. The average monthly rent is around $347, and the typical household occupant stays in assisted housing for about 6 years, but it is relative on the circumstances of the individual. The elderly stay in assisted housing for about 9 years, while non-elderly families with children stay about 4 years in assisted housing. For most assisted households, the length of stay is increasing. This could be due to the fact that more elderly people reside in assisted housing. All assisted housing residents for age, disability, and children let me say that again. All assisted housing residents for age, disability, and children grew from between 1995 to 2015. The smallest change was non-elderly families with kids. It went down between 1995 to 2015. Market forces, including rising housing costs and inadequate incomes, play the largest role in the growth of assisted households. The research shows as rents increase and renter income becomes less adequate, then the lengths of stay in assisted housing will increase. What does this all mean? I'm talking about a mandatory tertiary education. I'm talking about an investment in education for students like it was for war veterans with the GI Bill. This tertiary school will incorporate public housing for the 9 categories of residents, like college housing, trade school housing, special needs housing, soldier housing, elderly housing, homeless housing, immigrant housing, prisoner housing, and people who fail in life housing. This school will incorporate college, trade school, and training for a job in order to get a purposeful job, get a microloan to open a business, get a car loan for a car, and to get a house loan from a bank with a good credit score, if they want one. This will get people off of public housing with a purpose and hopefully in renting for the most part in the U.S. When people rent, they can't save their money because, as I said before, half of America doesn't have $400 for emergencies. This means the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. With more people owning a property, then a more stable economy will be produced. This can be done with 3D printed houses. It takes 2 weeks to make a 4-bedroom home with cement and steel with robots. These homes are fireproof, termite-proof, hurricane-proof, and it is better for the environment than traditional homes when putting them in a landfill after you break them down. 3D printed houses can be small for a single person to own 3D printed houses can be small for a single person to own for collateral when getting microloans to bank loans, or a luxury home for a family of any size. These 3D printed homes have been used to help the homeless problem in cities. Plus, these houses can be half the price of a traditional of God. Plus, these houses can be half the price of traditional homes with less insurance and maintenance for upkeeps over time with its strong infrastructure. With students owning homes to cars, and then with students owning homes to cars, and the plan to get people to own rather than rent after college with microloans to eventually bank loans, then the wealth gap in the U.S. will be distributed more equally. People will feel secure that government is helping them. This will lead to happiness. More equality for people across the Lamana Plus spectrum will occur. With more money spent in the investment in people, then the economy will grow beyond today in order to spend more money to find God, if there is one. This is the American dream. This is the beginning of equality for all. This is Lamana Plus. This is Dr. Dream. This is Lamana Plus and Doctor's dream come true. How does all this work? Let's start with college. When I was 24 years old and in college, I was finally old enough to use FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid. I was finally old enough to use my income instead of my parents' income as a determining factor on what I could receive for FAFSA. Since I was poor, I received grants from FAFSA to get one bachelor's degree. After my bachelor's degree, then I could only get loans to pay for college. After my bachelor's degree, then I could only get loans to pay for college to get my other degrees. Now I'm $300,000 in debt from college and working in fast food. Heartburn. This means I am at too high of a risk for a bank to get a bank loan to own property, own a business, own a car, or own a house on my own. I would need someone to co-sign with me who has a great credit score in order for me to get a bank loan. This means I can only pay rent and I am stagnating in life if nothing changes. This devised economic plan by investing in people with education and loans would help me immediately if I started over in life. As with the education done in school from 2 years old to graduation, students in college and trade school will still have their IEP, do preventative psychology work with Lamana Plus students, be an advocate for their learning, do scientific group work, be happy, learn to find God if it exists, etc. The students in college will focus on their purpose with a degree, like in physics, chemistry, or biology, and students in trade school will get a 2-year degree or associate's degree, being a mechanic, plumber, or electrician. Once the student has their associate's, bachelor's, master's, or PhD, then the next step is for this person to intern in their field. The student will also learn life skills as well, like paying rent, cook for themselves, do laundry, become independent with confidence. The students will also learn to increase their credit scores. They will learn how to work with an economic strategist or practice with microloans. After the student's internship, then they will have a private company or government office to help the student find or place that student into a job. This government office or private company is like an agent. This government office or private company is like an agency in Hollywood, helping the actor find roles for a movie, play, or TV. This employment agent will seek the same for the student in finding them a career in their field. The other possibility is if this student wants to start a business, then the student works with their economic strategist to do so. At the same period, the student is also working with their economic strategist to improve their credit score in order to get a loan from a bank for their business, a house loan for 30 years, and a car loan as well. Each loan, from microloans to home loans to car loans to bank loans, will be done in an individual study by an economic strategist to be duplicated, ethically reviewed, and published. There will be 3 studies done, and if 2 studies of the 3 come back saying go ahead with the loan, then they will be approved. If they are not approved, then there will be proposals or instructions in order for the student to be approved for their loans. These stages for students to achieve their purpose in life and to develop that purpose with some capital to make it happen, or they can choose an employment agent to help them find a job to fulfill that purpose. In either way, this hand-holding strategy is necessary to help the student achieve success in life and then independence to keep that success in life going. This hand-holding does 2 things for students, and they are economics and biology. With economics, every person within Lamana Plus will want access to this education, capital, and handholding. This means this is a lot of loans being given out. If the loans aren't paid back, then this can be another Great Depression like it was in the 1930s. This is why it is so important to have so many studies and reviews from so many experts and not letting this happen again. The next is biology. Humans, on average, aren't fully grown until they are 25 years old, and sometimes up to 30 years old if they were abused. This means that the prefrontal cortex in the brain is last to develop. This part of the brain is mainly responsible for reasoning. This means that the more education and practice for students close to this age of reasoning, then the more likely they will be mature and knowledge enough to pick a purposeful life and maintain it over a lifetime. This is prevention at its finest. This will lead to less failures and less money being spent to pick up the pieces. In this way, the economy and the biology of people will be more efficient together to create more successes than failures to help students succeed in life. Now, with homeless housing, immigrant housing, soldiers coming back from war housing, prisoner housing, and people who fail in life housing, they will all start off with an IEP with preventative psychology. Each group, depending on the individual, will come from a hard place, psychologically speaking, or they'll be fine and ready for a restart on their social life. With the people struggling with their psychology, then these students will have to develop their empathy again in order to trust, communicate, and get along with Lamana Plus students. It is almost like starting over in a way. They will learn to be a part of the universal culture of the U.S. with knowing English, knowing how to respect queer Americans, respect transgender Americans, respect women, and respect other Lamana Plus students. They will learn to be Americans by understanding the Constitution and the other topics in this paper. All this education that these groups will learn will be the same as the Lamana Plus students learn from 2 years old to graduation. At this stage in their education progress, then these students will choose college or a trade school. After they get their degree, they will learn to pay rent when they intern for their job. The intern job will be a paid job so that students learn the responsibility to pay rent. This will show students how much of their budgetary income goes into rent and why it makes the owner of the property richer and the renter poorer. This will show that the renter would have a hard time getting ahead in life and the almost impossibility to save for anything unless the person owns something, like a house. This will show students that owning will be a priority in life instead of wasting all their money by renting. At the same time, they will work with an economic strategist to get a microloan to a bank loan to a car loan. At the same time, they will work with an economic strategist to get a microloan to a bank loan to either a car, house, and a business, or work with an employment agent to get a purposeful job. With elderly and special needs housing, they will also learn with an IEP, preventative psychology, and everything a Lamana Plus student learns from 2 years old to graduation. With these groups, it depends on the individual. If the individual is capable, then after they learn everything from 2 years old to graduation, then they will proceed with trade school or college, then an internship, a purposeful job or a business if they want, in order to get a house and car. If they are not capable, then this student will be pushed to their highest achievement possible to a purposeful job. If this student is not capable of owning a house, car, business, etc., then this student will pay rent in order to stay in public housing. Again, the whole purpose of this type of school is to get students off public housing and for them to become independent. This is why it is so important to push them as much as possible so they can be as independent as allowed by their IP. How to pay for all this? The local, state, and federal departments will pay for it. Just like the GI Bill for veterans during the wars, it is an investment in an individual's future. The more success individuals have in buying houses, cars, businesses, being happy, finding a purposeful job, the more middle class will increase and improve upon the economy, like what the GI Bill did in the past. It's basically paying for itself, like it paid for the GI Bill from the income taxes. Duh. Because everybody's paying. No, but everybody's working for their own purpose. This is individual purpose, because there'll be less likely to do crimes, all the bad stuff. Less impulse thinking, more cognitive thinking toward their happiness. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Paying for college in the near future will be cheaper than it is today. For example, the 3 years that make up general education in college, especially for a bachelor's degree, can be added to high school. As I explained before. This means that college and trade schools can be focused on the core of classes needed to get that degree. For trade schools, then this means in general, it takes a year to a year and a half to get an apprenticeship in plumbing in Oregon. The apprenticeship is the schooling part of plumbing. After that, then this person will spend 4 years on the job training under a professional plumber to get the training needed to become a professional plumber themselves. The apprenticeship schooling will be paid for by the government, while the journeyman skill level is a paid job to increase their skill level. This type of apprenticeship or journeyman skill levels are in most trade school licensing practices. Once this person becomes a professional plumber, then the student can then work with their economic strategist to build a business. Once this person becomes a professional plumber, then the student can then work with their economic strategist to take business classes to obtain a business license and patent it, if necessary, to work with microloans, then to bank loans to open up their own businesses on being a professional plumber. If the student does not want to open up a business, then they can work with their employment agent to help them find a purposeful job. The handholding is done after the stage. The handholding is done after the stage. If they fail in life, then they get to start the process all over again for the most part. For college, then this means in general that college will be 1 year for a bachelor's degree, 2 years for a master's degree, and 3 years for a PhD before the dissertation. The dissertation can be relative to the individual on when they can complete it. It can be up to 7 years before they can get an extension to complete the dissertation. The student can complete this process with microloans, bank loans, or by working in the industry, or for the college to complete the dissertation. Once this person becomes a professional in their field, then this student can then work with their economic strategist to take business classes to obtain a business license and patent it, if necessary, to work with microloans, then to bank loans to open up their own business on being a professional in their subject area. If the student does not want to open up a business, then they can work with their employment agent to help them find a purposeful job. The hand-holding is done after this stage. If they fail in life, then they get to start the process all over again for the most part. With students closer to 25 years old, when they graduate with their business or getting their professional jobs, then there will be less of a chance for students to reconsider a new career or a new path in life because they will be close to being fully grown. This will make them more mature to stick to their life decisions that they already made. This will help in the return of the investment. This will help in the return of the investment Americans are making for these students in their success in life. Plus, more economic success for the students can be made in towns for starting businesses and for starting jobs, as stated before. Because the small towns are failing right now, so if you take your microloans to actually go there, there's less competition, and so your businesses will thrive more. It's pretty cool. Also, an economic advisor can give the student starting a business a good analyst with many studies on the best known town to be successful in. Now, every town to every city has public housing, education, immigration, etc. Then this means the money will be used to help these students to be successful in their lifetime. If the money is given out to the local cities, to the states to help students, then this can work over all the Monoplus students. Plus, as mentioned before, small towns are failing and cities are too crowded for empathy to take hold. Again, it is like going to a grocery store to buy ketchup. If this person has to choose from many ketchups, then this can be overwhelming to any person if they are not familiar with the brands. Cities are like that for humans in empathy. It is just too many people to care for in cities, and people get overwhelmed. They get overstimulated. So the caring goes away, and then the anger comes. Road rage. Not for all people, but, it's just a general example. Then people get overwhelmed. This is why people bypass other humans as an object and lack care for people in general overall in cities. Just like a person choosing a ketchup bottle in a sea of ketchup bottles in a grocery store. This is why people get overwhelmed, overstimulated. Small towns can be like the Andy Griffith Show in a way, with close friends, everyone knows everyone, with empathy and stability more than a big city. It's just, when you see it, it's just because people go, like in the 1930s, when the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, people went to cities because that's where the jobs were. No one can plant farms anymore because of the Dust Bowl. Now we have super cities like Tokyo, Mexico City, where you have, I think up to 10 million people in a crammed area. That is nuts. Because that's where all the jobs are. That's where all the money is. So if you get microloans, you leave the cities. You go back to the towns. You go back to where there's less congestion, less stress, too many people, too much stimulation. And then you invest in the small town. You have a competitive edge. You are working with a lot of people from 2 years old to graduation. You see these people all the time. And so you are able to do business with them. You're able to communicate with them. You're able to have relationships with them. Because again, if you're in a big town, big city, and you're overstimulated, you're just not going to have any empathy or sympathy toward these people. It's almost an indifference, and you're just going to think of them as an object, just try to get around. So, it's so, ah. Since Ivy League schools are really just for social networking, for good research positions, or rich people investing in a student's business, then this new system of people moving to a small town, then this new system of people moving to small towns to start businesses and by finding purposeful jobs is very similar to an Ivy League school. Duh. So, God, it's just, come on, it's so simple. Sorry, I just get overexcited. It's right there. For example, with an economic strategist to help each student with their credit score to get microloans to bank loans, then this is like a rich person investing in a business, like an Ivy League school. Plus with an employment agent helping students to land purposeful jobs with internships, and then with real jobs after graduation, then this is like Ivy League school networking, trying to know someone to place a research person in a job of their choice. Plus with small towns to cities offering college to trade schools for everyone with similar accredited degrees as Ivy League schools, then competition for elite schools for the rich will be a thing of the past. This shows that education equality will be a thing for the here and now. No more poverty, no more poverty, no more poverty. Da-da. God, so... See, there's a reason why Dr. King got a statue of him. The guy was brilliant. The best part about all this is that there will be a progression with students in each of the 9 categories of public housing for a purposeful life into owning something and not paying rent. Also, the individual studies being done on each student for their IP will show the progress needed for the hand-holding to stop and for their lives to begin. This will help get people off of public housing and into a real house. This investment by America for individuals to succeed will eventually pay for itself in order to expand the economy. So awesome. In today's market, people are complaining about high rent prices that never go down and only go up. Plus, over 75% of homes are too expensive for middle-class income buyers in the U.S. With this economic strategy pushing most to all students to own, then renting to make certain amount of people, with this education strategy pushing most to all students to own, then renting to make certain amount of people rich will be a thing of the past. The renters who will rent, depending on the individual, will be the elderly and the special needs housing, and they will be on public housing. With the middle class not being able to own homes, then there are 3 things that can be done on this. The first thing is that houses are always cheaper in small towns than big cities. They are. That's so far. Oh, man. This means students will start owning houses. Like, I live in a small town in Oregon. My cousins live in Southern Oregon. Their houses are 2 to 3 times the price here. And then their houses need so much upkeep next to our houses up here. And it's just, what is going on? It's just crazy. I know, but that's, I'm not in charge of the market down there, or up here, so. This means the first thing is that houses are always cheaper in small towns than big cities. This means students will start owning houses and businesses in small towns and big city. This means students will start owning houses and businesses in small towns, and big cities will shrink to the size of small towns in this process. This will make houses cheaper to own or less supply and demand on expensive homes. The second thing is that when people become happy, they don't want to be looking for large homes to compete with the Joneses or to stroke their egos by having stuff. Unless you have a hobby. I mean, if you have a hobby, then it's okay to have stuff. But I mean, other than that, then you're just keeping up with the Joneses. Oh, my Gucci purse is great, but Carla's Gucci purse is better than mine, so I gotta upgrade to better her. See, keeping up with the Joneses. Not happy. Just already proved this. They will buy modest homes in order for them to function on their use to provide for their families, jobs, and hobbies, and what they want to do in life. This is the purpose of happiness. The last thing is the market. When an item first hits the market and everyone wants it, then the price goes way up. This is basic supply and demand. With some time and with more product out in the market, then the price goes down for everyone to purchase and enjoy. This is no different for the housing market. When people start buying houses, then they will have to contend with higher prices, but they will be cheaper in small towns. As the market gets flooded with moderate homes for purpose instead of giant homes for ego, luxury, and keeping up with the Joneses as today's market has, and why no one can afford a home today, then the house prices will come down. This means no one company, person, or entity will be owning many homes to get rich. These homes will be for Americans who want to live in peace, away from anyone telling them what to do, and to be happy. This means they have the knowledge, skill, and ambition taught to them to be this way. Universal culture. Just Yara, Shahidi. Prevention, equity. Well, this is equity to equality. She's going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, a person can ask for help because there is nothing wrong with that. People have bad days to years, and failure is all right. Starting over is all right too. This is why there is housing for people who start over, as stated before. They can begin again in order to become happy. They can begin again in order to become happy. Have a purposeful job, own a business, own a home again, and help the U.S. be in a more equitable state for everyone. Equity. It's just like Denmark. Their government helps them. They're happy because their government helps them. This is helping people in the U.S. or the world. It's simple, man. When students are interning for their future job, then they will have opportunities to play with simulated microloans for their future businesses if they choose, as mentioned before. Students will be evaluated by individual studies done on them. Students will also do classes on simulations on their businesses with microloan studies. These business study classes will have students doing their individual studies on the best case scenarios to worst case scenarios and how they would proceed in the best course of action to keep their business working. These simulations will help the student learn in real-world situations on what to do. This will help them in the real world when something like this will happen. This is a great tool to evaluate and help students learn and help America in getting that return on their investment as well. See, this is situational learning. When you go from worst case scenario, best case scenario. for your business, for life, for psychological understanding, from your own educational understanding. It's just like when you're doing a history class and you dress up in a costume and you act out a certain time period in your history class. It's the same thing. That's a situational learning experience. With situational learning, it's almost like pretend without the consequence, because real life has consequences, and then you learn from the failures. So if this person, I'll give you an example. So if you're in a relationship with your your partner, and that person cheats, then the simulation would be, situational learning would be how to deal with it. Do you go back with that person? And this will be the consequence of that. Do you leave that person? This is the consequence of that. Or do you talk it out and go with the consequence of that? You're each 3 parts, you're learning on how to deal with it, because each individual and each case is different, but you'll get an understanding on close to the reality through that situational learning. It's the pretend, or the hand-holding, or the understanding before you can get into the real world. It's just so great. When college and trade schools start, and each Lamana Plus student starts using scientific simulations on their businesses, then this shows that each student from poor to rich will be the same in starting a business. Equity, then equality. Yara's hypothesis. What? They will start with simulations, then to raising their credit score, then to microloans, and then to bank loans. Poverty ends. Yay! After all this, students will finally open up. Oh, so much for my talking. After all this, students will finally open their own business and only ask for help when they want it, because they're independent, because they have the skill set. They want to be left alone. The hand-holding is done. It's just, they're adults. Let them be. If they don't want a business, then students will be placed in their purposeful jobs by their employment agent. All this is done on the merit and knowledge of the individual, because individuals are adults and they know what they want. When they have the information given to them and the skill set taught to them. And then when you have it all, a bunch of people, then you have the sociology of the equity level, and then you have a society of equality. God, it's just so great. So great. Can you just give the Nobel Peace Prize to Yara right now? She deserves it. All this is done on the merit and knowledge of the individual. This will give the individual confidence in themselves and skill level to achieve the motivation for success on their own. Yep, the hand-holding is over, so to speak. This means rich people will not rely on daddy's money, so to speak. They will achieve this on their own. Poor people can achieve this success as well, without the excuse that they will never achieve nothing in life. I know. This opportunity will help everyone who can achieve this if they want it. This return will grow the economy for everyone in America in order to find God, if it exists, and why we are here. God, so good. So good. Ichni Sanchi Go, Kuju, Lalun, Wee Wee, Hola, buenos dias, adios. We all win together, de nada.